Hi everyone, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. We've reached the middle of the week and the middle of my Coffee Chinwag series this week. Every day from 3 to 3:30 British summertime, I've been chatting to an inspiring female entrepreneur. Today I'm going to be chatting to the amazing Adelle Martin. We're going to be talking about navigating the menopause as a business owner. So before I launch in, I'm going to introduce myself because I have a habit of forgetting to do it. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Corcoran. I'm an award-winning LinkedIn trainer and strategist, and I help female entrepreneurs to polish up their profiles and to connect with finesse so that they can attract their ideal clients on LinkedIn with ease. I'm all about organic reach and the magic of DMs. So no horrible, yucky, cold, awkward outreach with me. It's all about authentic reach and authentic engagement. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. So you might think, why am I talking about menopause? Why am I not talking about LinkedIn? Well, we're all human beings, and I like to talk about a variety of topics. And my clients are business owners. I'm a female business owner. So hormones affect me and they affect my clients. So it's really important for me to talk about topics like this that are close to my heart. So I can see we've got somebody joining us live. Hi, Gopi. Always good to know. Before I bring up Adele as well, if anybody else is watching us live, let us know. Or if you're watching it on replay, put in hashtag replay and I'll come back to your comments. So before I bring up Adele, I've got a tiny intro for her. I just need to read off a bit of it. I wish I knew it off by heart. But Adele, basically, she's an accredited coach and she helps business women to manage their menopause by teaching them to build a strong body using her own menopause resilience system so that they continue to lead themselves, their family, and their business through their hormonal changes. And I know at 47 myself, I'm currently in perimenopause. So as a business owner, I have to manage my energy as number one, an introvert, number two, an empath, and number three, as someone in perimenopause. So I'm really interested in this discussion today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the lovely Adele onto the virtual stage. Hi, Adele. Thanks so much for
Hello.
me.
Thank you for having me. And I was also, we're the middle of the week, so it's perfect for midlife.
Exactly. It's all nicely connected. So thanks so much. I have some questions to ask you, and anyone watching here today, if you've got any questions for Adele, don't be shy. We'll be sharing contact details at the end as well if you want to reach out to her privately. So the first question I have for you is, do we all go through menopause?
Simple answer is yes, Jennifer. It's so interesting because when I do work with women and network and talk to women, they say, oh, I didn't go through it. I'm not sure if I'm going to go through it. Isn't that something that we go through in our late 60s and isn't it 70s? And from my original experience a long time ago, it's something that my grandmother went through. So for me, it's so important whether we like it or not. And menopause, I saw a comment, it is real. I certainly felt the realness of it in a very harsh way, and it is real and it's not optional. And sometimes women say, I didn't go through it, and we absolutely do. Some of us go through it, but the thing is, this is the interesting point, 100% of women are impacted. And some will get there through natural life stages, and some women are put into this stage because of chronic illness. And I work with both types. And then from that, 95% of us do actually say these symptoms do impact us. And then listen to this. This is where I get really like, oh my God. From the research I've read, but more importantly, from the women I've been talking to over many, many years, 51% of us, and I was one of those, took time out of their career or their business because of it. And unnecessary and sadly, 32% of us sell our businesses. So yeah, we all go through it. So for me, it's educating women to help through that stage. So a long answer, but yes, we all go through it.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to talk about it because I think we're kind of like the first generation that are talking about it, because I certainly received no pearls of wisdom from my kind of mother, or I think that kind of era, they just didn't talk about things like this, and it does impact us and our energy. And I know I've got days where I've got limited energy, and it does impact my business. So I have to kind of shuffle clients around or be very mindful of my hormones when I'm booking things in. And I do know people who have quit their corporate careers because of it, because they thought there was something wrong with them. They didn't know what was happening with them. They were getting brain fog. They couldn't concentrate. They had low energy. And it just seemed the easier thing to do to quit. So I'm not surprised to hear that people give up their businesses as well, which is quite sad, really, you know. So I'm really grateful to have you on, and I completely agree with what Karen has said. You know, she's in the midst of it, and it's a challenge, and I'm there as well with you, Karen, and it is a challenge, which is why it's so important to talk about it. I think at the moment there is a lot of talk about menopause in corporate, which is amazing because it wasn't there when I was an employee. But what about the business women? Because when we get sick or we have symptoms, who's going to pay our bills? Who's going to pay our sick leave? So it's so important to have some kind of awareness. So my next question for you, Adelle, is when do our hormone changes or sorry, when do our hormone changes start? A bit of brain fog, so quite topical.
Absolutely. So again, so women talk about, I go for blood tests, I'm going to find out. So do you know what I say to women is, from the age of 39, our hormones will start to decline. You know, some like myself, I ended up having an early menopause, unaware at 40. So mine started a bit earlier, but on average, they start at around 39 and they will then start to decline. And it's so interesting because I meet and talk to women. For me, those changes first manifested into brain fog, forgetting things, anxiety and confidence, which is where I ended up in my personal position. But that starts around sort of 39. And then as we move towards what would be menopause, and actually I call it, and bear with me, the Cinderella moment. So menopause is really just 1 hour of one night. So if we get to the 12th month with no period and we go into 13, then we are post-menopausal. So actually, menopause is one moment. So for me, it's working with women saying, actually, there's perimenopause that can start around 39. Now, the fun bit. Now, Mother Nature, I wished she was more linear and says, right, Adelle, because I like to know what I can control. Right, so you're going to start at 39, do that. Great, Adelle, I can plan it and put it in the diary. No, it doesn't quite work like that. So it's the decline at 39. And then as we move towards will or won't period stop, that's when you get larger fluctuations of estrogen. And when those fluctuations happen, that's when you can surface the things like, you know, hot flushes, OMG. I started from that point of view in the boardroom completely sweating way before I realized I was menopausal, but just put it into anxiety, etc. So from that point of view, you know, it's really interesting. So those fluctuations can start to trigger some of those. You know, at the moment, in the average age in the UK and in the US is around 51. But for me, it started earlier at 40. And I couldn't have a conversation with my grandmother because she wasn't around, and my mum had a hysterectomy. So I truly was the first generation in the boardroom and of this generation going through it from a natural phase. So, you know, so you get extremities from either way. And then beyond that, you then become postmenopausal. So what happens then is the progesterone and estrogen start to come back together. So you get less fluctuations, but they are lower. And then, you know, sometimes women have reported hot flushes carrying on later towards into their 60s. But if they then do subside, then for me, the key element for me is the symptoms that are underneath the waterline, which is our bone density, the impact on our heart, our brain and muscles. And that yes, it is the aging process. But for us as women, it's 30% faster than men because of the 3 hormonals that we're working through. So for me, it doesn't stop at postmenopause. We still have to carry on looking after ourselves because of the impact of it. But it really is that bit in the middle when it's fluctuating was where I completely got knocked off my feet, and that element. The difference as well, because I do talk about it. I talk about it all the time. I am helping the first generation of women in business in the boardroom because we've also got to manage this when actually with our busy lives we're running families, we could be running teams, we're dealing with parents that we're trying to support, family and siblings. We're really in the center of our midlife, plus menopause on top. So it's just taking menopause, but taking it wider of all the things that we're dealing with, but perhaps our mothers and our grandmothers didn't have the opportunities. So I've never had so much opportunity ever, but it comes with responsibility to manage those hormones, because like myself, I couldn't manage what I didn't understand. So therefore I didn't know. So I ended up being quite unwell during that process. I came out the other side. So for me, it's that complexity of managing this change through what is a key part for us. So it's quite interesting.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that it can start like in the late 30s. And I think in my head growing up, I just thought menopause happens at 50 odd. And like you said, it's a brief moment in time. I knew nothing about perimenopause until about 3 years ago. I knew there was no build up. And then you find out that the build up could be like 12 years long. And I know my hairdresser, she's in menopause, she's in her late 30s. I know I've got close family member and my best friend back in Ireland, they're both technically in menopause, so stopped, and they're mid 40s. And I think, you know, like you say, the average age is 50, but it can happen a lot younger, which is why it's so important to talk about it, because when you start to get those symptoms and you are in your late 30s or your early 40s, you don't think of it as menopause and you think, what the hell's wrong with me? Why am I knackered? Why do I have this weird anxiety? Why am I getting a hot flash or whatever, you know? So I think, yeah, it's really interesting to hear that women are still getting the hot flashes as well in their 60s. And I've heard of somebody getting them still in their 70s. So, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear as well about your experience that you didn't realize and that you had to kind of go through it cold turkey. I first started to get my symptoms at 44, so like 3 years ago, and it took me about 2 years to figure it out and kind of go, oh. And even my doctor, I know a lot of doctors kind of think, oh, you're too young, but we're not. That's why it's so important. So I can see some comments coming in. So I'm just going to showcase Sharon here. So she's been in perimenopause 10 years. Okay. So medically induced by, do you know, you might know that drug, Adelle.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So yes, I've got several clients and women that I work with that have gone through breast cancer, and again, the impact of that, etc. And it puts these ladies into menopause. So, but again, I work with them. We work on the solutions. We tailor some for whatever drug they're on, but the core basics are the same to look after ourselves. But coming back to your point, so mine was 11 years ago. So gosh, imagine 11 years ago. Think about where we were, where I was literally in a very, very male-dominated world, and I was struggling with my confidence. Although in the boardroom, nobody would have noticed. But what I was finding, it was taking more of my energy as I left the boardroom, thinking, how am I going to get through the next? You know, I was forgetting. I'd always have a set of slides and some bullet points. I was handwriting everything and standing, and they said to me, "You okay, Adelle?" And I'm like, no, I don't think I am, but I never said that outward. I went away, and then ultimately, I was trying so hard to keep it together that I actually collapsed the day after a very big boardroom presentation. I got what I wanted in terms of the project I was working on, but I became quite poorly, and sat down with my doctor at the time and scratching his head going, I have no idea what's going on with you 11 years ago. And then I was prescribed at the time some antidepressants, and I said, no, it's more than that. It's not this, it's not that. So to be fair, he was brilliant, and then in the end I got referred to a gynecologist, and she's been amazing. And I was just on the phone to her today. How are you doing, Adelle? You know, we become really good friends, and she helped me through it. But we really had to piece it together. And I was thinking at the time, because again, I always have to find something, I couldn't be the only one going through this. And it was that then. So don't laugh. I left finance, but went back to work 3 months later after working out. I reconciled, I changed in 40 ways. I went back into HR because I wanted to make a difference. So, and then obviously that's where I worked, both corporate and business women, because I wasn't prepared to take, yes, don't get me wrong, my mental health extremely suffered. Honestly, at some points, I couldn't even remember my name, but it wasn't the answer. I wanted to truly find, and to be fair, after we did a load of blood work, they said to me, "You are postmenopausal," and I went, "But I'm 40.
Yeah.
I don't want my life to be over."
Wow. And I can totally relate to the brain fog. I get it every now and again, and you're like, what is wrong with me? And if anybody watches any of my webinars, you'll know I have a lot of slides, and a lot of them are to prompt me because I couldn't, rely on my brain to kind of get me through it, like otherwise. And it just comes out of nowhere. And sometimes, like funny brain fog, for example, I was trying to say to my husband that that's a lovely new car, and I was like, that's a lovely young car. So you're like, oh my God, you're coming out with things and you're getting it, the
And
meaning's kind of the same, but it's not. And you're like,
yeah,
oh,
I
I can't
know.
anymore.
Exactly. And I'll let you into a secret, because I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? I am such the researcher. I love anything to do with the science of it. So it's brilliant. So during my 3 months off, I went back to school to pull out the books to see what is going on. And actually, so what happens is what we realize now, thank God, because of things like CT scans and MRIs, where we are literally under the microscope, you can see inside their brain. So when estrogen is fluctuating, the best way of describing it, if it rains, your lights might flicker. But if it really rains heavy, your satellite dish, like me, you might lose Sky TV. So what happens is when our hormones fluctuate, you get a bit of electric current. So you might forget, like I walk into a room and go, I can't remember I came in here. What am I looking for? That could be that fluctuation. And this is the interesting bit, the more stress we add on ourselves, and this is the challenge that we have, and I know, and I don't want to, try not to be stressful, but the challenge of then, and if we then add, so if you think about me in the boardroom, perfect storm, I get that flicker, I forget what I was going to say, then everybody stares at you, the hormones rage, the hot flush, and then that goes to a little bit more, and then the sky dish is gone. Okay, so I say to the women, do you want to bring this in gently on your surfboard or a tsunami? So what I then realised, and one of the techniques I've then worked, is to just try and calm that down, just to stop that sky dish. So in actual fact, it truly is the amount of receptors we have in our brain with estrogen. So when it's fluctuating, you're just flicking the lights there. So it's really interesting. And I can see sort of a comment here there from Karen saying diet and exercise really does work. Lots of water, deep breathing. Absolutely. So part of what I worked out, because I needed to get back in the boardroom, because I was a woman that really needed to share her story. So part of the work that I've done, I retrained into diet and fitness and personal training, etc. And I've spent the last 11 years working out exactly what to eat, when to eat it, how to train, so I can create this whole body to get back. And I do huge amounts of research with me, my other clients, and focus groups, because sometimes it is easier said than done. But for me, the bottom left hand is food, move, and snooze. And when we get those under control, then some of these things like hot flushes, they're still there, but they're not like the sky dish going out. They're not really strong. It's managing this process. But you can't manage what you don't understand. So once you understand where the estrogen receptors are, what that means in terms of if they're in the brain, then it's the brain fog and the memory lapses and the mood swings. If it's in, and the second place is your digestive system. And then we have the mind-gut loop. So if you're getting bloating and uncomfortable like me, intolerances that I'd never had before in my life, it was again because of the amount of the estrogen receptors. But I just learned to eat properly and move. So it's sharing that story. But like you said as well, there's an element of where there's sort of corporate, where you've got that safety. But what took me on this journey to leave corporate, I was getting approached by more and more business women saying, Adelle, there's nothing for us in the business world. It's around corporate. So that's why I took a very brave decision to walk away from corporate 2 years ago to focus on supporting women in business.
Oh, it's amazing. And I think it's so needed, because I've been misdiagnosed in the past, like you mentioned, like being put on antidepressants. And I was like, it's not that, it's something more. And I've had the blood test come back saying there's nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, something's happening here. I just don't have the mojo, or I've got the brain fog, or just weird fatigue out of nowhere. So I do think it's so important to highlight it, because more and more business owners are 40 plus, 50 plus setting up, especially over the last year. There will have been a lot of new business owners, even retired people are setting up. So we really need to learn how to be kind to ourselves and manage our energy and kind of work our business around our hormones so that we can make the best of it. And I love that you focused on nutrition. And what was it again you said about food, mood?
Mood. So in the bottom left-hand corner of the butterfly, which is my resilience system, is all, do you know what? It's about feeling stronger. So it's food, move, and snooze. And the reason, again, how I realized is that, you know, for me to get, I talk about top left is think clearly, the top right is manage relationships, and the bottom right is take ownership. Okay. But I need all four of them to work in parallel. But I realized that I couldn't even get off the starting blocks until I'd thought about food. And for me as well, it's about feeling stronger, because we have to be mindful of the pressure sometimes we get from marketing. And this is I call it the butterfly, and it truly is, because I felt like I went back into the caterpillar and I'd lost my identity. My body didn't look the same, and I felt completely lost. And then then there wasn't the level of social media that there is now, but there was still this expectation of what I should look like, what I should say, and what the expectations were. And I found that really overwhelming as well. And actually I'm saying, no, do you know what? I'm going to throw away the scales. I'm going to throw away what people tell me I should look like. And what I realize is I'm going to feel stronger. I need to build that muscle. I need to build the structure. I need to feel confident. And more important, you know, when I looked at how our bones and muscles age, I thought I'm going to pick up those weights. And it was a complete game changer. My food, my snooze was a complete game changer, but also because I didn't want to spend the next 50 years fighting what everybody else said I should look like, or worst of all, Googling menopause women and looking at images that look nothing like me. And I just get so, to me, it's really important that we create the narrative to what we want to look like and not be told. And this, sometimes in this age group, it can be quite tough to manage that shop window and what we're fed through marketing sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I'm sure you saw the program with Davina McCall. It was a few months ago, and people were going on like it was Earthshattering. And I've kind of probably gone back to school a bit like you over the last 3 years and read loads of books and got into it. And I was thinking, how do these people not know this information? But it's just only coming out. It's crazy. Like it was kind of like this was an Earthshattering documentary, and said like 10% of women were on HRT, and I was just like, 90% of women are suffering, or if they're lucky, they're going to get it to work with natural causes. And you know, I'm personally myself on HRT. I'm like, if there's a drug out there that can help me, give it to me. I'm all for it, because I just think 50 years ago this drug wouldn't have existed, or 100 years ago, so I don't have to suffer even what my mother suffered. So I'm all for this, you know, as long as it's safe. But yeah, it's amazing how it's like such an earth-shattering subject. And I remember when I first went into perimenopause, I messaged two of my friends who are early 30s, and just I screenshotted something about perimenopause and sent it to them, and they were both like, what is this? One of their mothers is passed, sadly, so she's got no mother to kind of tell her. And then the other's from a particular culture where they don't talk about periods or menopause. And they were both shocked, but I was kind of like, well, girls, you've got 10-year heads up than I had. So I'm sorry to ruin your day, but at least you are prepared.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. So I've got my mum, and she's 75 and she's hysterectomy. So I sort of help and support her. I've got my daughter that's 24, because I say I'm helping the first generation, but educating the second generation. Yeah. And also the interesting bit is, as my dad has got prostate cancer, and they're treating him with HRT. So I really am keeping all the women. But again, I've got women come back to me, yeah, that's how my husband. So, you know, there's some interesting aspects. So having you know, my dad and working through that as well. But again, it's educating, you know, all of the people in my life as well, and the relationships. And when I work with women, particularly then when I went back to corporate and shared my story, you know, sometimes to begin with, people said to me, why didn't you tell me you was unwell? I went, because I didn't know. I couldn't articulate to myself, let alone explain. And what would I say? We didn't realize I was postmenopausal until 3 months of working with doctors. So at the time, I didn't know what to say. And they said, you should have asked for help. I went, I didn't know I needed it, you know, because, you know, it was tough, you know, it was tough from that point of view. And I've just seen that comes, but ignorance is bliss, I guess. But as a woman, it's coming our way for sure, unfortunately. Yeah, it absolutely is. And for me, that's why seeing this year in particular, being World Menopause Week, I've seen so many more comments, I've seen more workplaces, and I've been on this journey for 11 years sharing it. And for me this year, I'm thinking, have we turned a corner? But for every good story, we still see women, you know, where, you know, they're unaware. And so for me, it's something that we got to keep on talking about it. But sessions like this and having people come and comment, because when I went to go back to work 11 years ago, somebody said to me, wouldn't it be less embarrassing to say you did have mental health issues rather than put menopause on the sick certificate? And I said, well, actually, you know, this was a friend. I said, no, because my employer's been brilliant, and I'm going to go into HR and create a category for menopause, so I can calculate how many lost days that we get. So, you know, as I always say, be the change you want to see in the world, and I will talk about it. But also, Jennifer, as well, I also want to show there is life after it as well. You know, I love who I am now. Trust me. Yeah, I truly have gone from caterpillar out the other side. But I've learned the word no. I feel empowered, and my mum, even my family, like, oh, you really have changed. I said, yes, I have. I really have. I have leveraged my hormones, and what happens as we do come through the other side, oxytocin, which is our more cuddly, will start to fall away, and then we get much more vasopressin. So it's a bit more of risk taking, but that's our natural life stage. So I have leveraged it. I've had a tough journey to get there, but do you know what? I could have come out of that doctor's surgery and thought, I'm going to take ownership of this. I'm not going to lose my career after a long time getting it. But I did go back to the duvet. I went back to bed for 2 weeks and thought, how the hell am I going to get out of this? And I just took ownership, got curious, and realised, yes, I need to get back to work today, but I also need to sort of invest in my future self. And I've got a daughter, and I'm thinking, I don't want another woman to go through what I did, you know, and share that, but also share that there is life out of the other side, and I'm fitter and stronger than where I am. And it's not a dirty word, and as what's coming, and it isn't. And I love sharing my story and sharing stories of other women. And, you know, on Monday night, I had a room locally of amazing Kent women in business, all doing some really cool stuff, all going through menopause or out the other side. And I'm like, wow. And because we have been in lockdown, to actually get all these women, and we were celebrating what can be done, but also recognizing that some of us have had a tough personal journey to get there. But yeah, so it's showing both sides of it. And yeah, it's not a dirty word. To me, it's an empowering word.
Yeah, no, it's great to be talking about it. And even like, you know, 10 years ago, I think mental health as well, it's become pretty much the norm, and it's okay to talk about it. But even 10 years ago, people weren't really talking about it. And my mum has mental health issues, and she was on so much medication for that. And she's an epileptic that she doesn't really have any recollection of menopause. So that's why I don't, because she's on a cocktail really. So how would she even have known which symptom was which? I think, yeah, menopause needs to be talked about, like freely, and periods, all of it, because we're all human beings, and it's ridiculous that we kind of, you know, we can talk freely about so many topics, but anything to do with our bodies is like a no. But you know, we're all human beings, you know, that's the whole point, you know. So yeah, I think it's amazing, and you're doing such an amazing job at inspiring women, and we need more people like you. And if anyone's listening today and they are struggling with their symptoms, definitely reach out to Adelle. She will help you. You'll be in very safe hands. So I'm just going to spotlight what Karen said as well. You know, menopause is not a dirty word, it's natural progression. Exactly. And I'm sure people were thinking, what the hell is Jennifer doing another live? And now she's talking about menopause. But for that very reason, we need to make it the norm. So, you know, it is a normal part of life. And I love your butterfly motif and the fact, you know, we kind of go through this change and come out the other side. It's amazing. So I'm very mindful that we're kind of just at the end of the 30 minutes and it's flown in. So if anyone's got any last minute comments or questions, just fire them in the chat now. We'll come back to you later. But Adelle, what's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you? Like, what's your favorite platform, or are there a few different ways they can get in touch?
The best way to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn. So connect with me, send me a DM through LinkedIn, and then I can connect and chat there.
Amazing. And I know you've been doing so many talks this week, especially with International Menopause Day on Monday. I know you've got an email list as well, and you're going to be sharing a lot of resources. What's your website if anybody wants to sign up and get some of your amazing information as well?
So it's executivemidlife.coach is my website. And on there, I have my, guess what, 40 things to accept over 40. So my own personal list of things that will change. So I've got that there as well. And yes, I have a new newsletter that's going to start next week.
Amazing, amazing. I'm actually going to sign up as well because I think I need your newsletter. I need inspirational things to keep me going when the mojo goes. So I just want to say thanks a million for coming on. I've been looking forward to chatting to you. I know a lot of people are going to watch the replay. I know some people might be shy to comment. You know, don't be shy. Reach out to Adelle and chat with her behind the scenes in DMs if that's better for you. But thanks so much, Karen and Sharon. You've been great in picking up. And I know we've got a gentleman, we had Gopi join as well at the start. So thanks so much for engaging with us. And yeah, have a lovely rest of day. And thank you for helping us to keep the conversation going. And thanks a million, Adelle. You were fab. As I expected.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a million. Take care.